of the jar, but also we didn't pack it. We didn't push it down and squish it down.
Okay.
And so that when it was processed, it obviously the tomatoes cooked down, and that's why we've got all of that space.
Okay,
so you always
there's
want
a clear difference there.
And so you always want to fill it up to the heavy rim on your jar. There will be some things that we have to fill a little higher and some a little bit lower, but we'll get into those particulars as we go through the program. And so that this is one that if you look very closely, you'll find that, and I'm not going to open it, but it's a little bit darker on the top because it's been exposed to that little bit of air that's in that jar, as compared to this one that has stayed bright
all the way through.
all the way through. There's no darkening on the very top. Now some people will say, well, does dark mean you got to throw it away? No. It's just like eating an apple. If you leave the apple out for a half an hour or so, or if you have children who take a bite and run and go play, you go back and find the apple's brown. It's still good. It just doesn't look pretty.
Right.
Now, but how do you know it's spoiled?
Well, from experience, I think I can say that if your jar pops up at the top, that's probably a pretty bad sign. Or if you can make a sound with it at all.
And what Stephanie's referring to is what we call the doorbell sound. When this means it's not sealed. But when it goes down and stays down and you can't get any sound out of it, it means it's sealed and you're okay.
It's like when Sue was talking earlier about loving the popping sound. You want to make sure you're hearing that, or else it probably means you're not getting the product that you want.
But what happens if in the morning you find that your jar hasn't sealed? What do we do with it? Do we have to throw it away?
Well, if you find it that soon, then you can just put it in the fridge.
That's right. Put it in the fridge and use it within the next couple of weeks, and you don't have to throw it away. But if you put it away in the cupboards and then you go back 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks later and you've got that sound, ooh, no.
You'll usually be able to see on the top that that's not a good idea. That's something that I've learned, is that usually if you've made a big mistake, you'll be able to tell. You won't have to guess.
Right. And when you find something like that, can I pour it down the garbage disposal?
No, because you don't know exactly what's going on in there. You don't want to put it straight back into the water system.
So what you'll need to do is flush it down the toilet.
Flush it down the toilet.
Don't put it in your compost pile. Don't put it out in the garden. Don't put it in the garbage, because as we all know, garbage has a tendency to attract dogs and cats and wildlife, and if they get into it, we may be killing some of them as well. So we want to make sure that anything that's spoiled, number one, don't taste it to see if it's okay.
Right.
Because that may send you to the emergency room. Because botulism is something very common in home canned foods. And secondly, smelling it isn't going to always tell you that it's spoiled or not. And so the easiest is to tell whether it ding-dongs. If it's cloudy, if it's really discolored, if it's got foamy, icky stuff on the top, don't even open it until you get into the bathroom. Open it carefully away from you, because there may be spores in the jar, and dump it in the toilet and flush immediately, because then through the septic system or through the municipal system it will degrade and will not contaminate anybody else. And so it's really important to dispose of carefully. But you can also make applesauce when you're doing water bath kinds of things. And applesauce is great fun. This one happens to be peach sauce, because I had some peaches that weren't very pretty, so I decided to make them into sauce. And sauce is very great. So one of the things you can do is just take a colander, and I'll take my peaches out that we're going to show you how to can in a few minutes. And what you do is you just simply take a wooden spoon, or we're using the stick for sauerkraut, and you just take the colander and you put the cooked apples in the colander, and to cook them, all you have to do is wash them really well. And I always say this is free food in Bloomington, because we have lots and lots of fruit trees in the cityscape that don't get used.
People don't want them all over the ground.
No, they don't want them all over the ground because of the yellow jackets and all of that kind of thing. But they are also dirty. And, you know, the doggies have come along and taken their hike on the trunk of the tree, and the deer have gotten there and so on. So you want to wash them really well. Cut them in half so that you can check to make sure there's no extra protein inside the apple like a worm. And then put them in a big pot and stew them down. Cook them down till they're soft. Then you put them in the colander and you just rub them through the colander over a bowl, and it makes the sauce comes out, the squirts out the sides, and you've got applesauce. Then if you
So
want
simple.
to, you can add sugar to it. You can add artificial sweetener to it, or
What
you can leave
about
it just natural.
cinnamon?
Oh, cinnamon is great.
So
in
you
it.
can flavor it.
You can flavor it as you wish. And it takes quite a while to put it through a colander like that, and particularly when you've got the lots of cores and lots of skins, because applesauce doesn't have skin in it. That's why you have to press it through. So it really, if you're going to do a lot of it, you might want to use what we call a food mill. And again, you'd pour the cooked apples in here, and then you just rub it around. And so this is a whole lot more fun to push through, because it's got the little holes in the bottom, and it makes a much finer applesauce, and it's also got the automatic scraper on it. So it just scrapes it right into the bowl. And I used it to make this peach sauce.
Oh, great.
And I'm in for recycling. Not just paper and that kind of thing, but with this one, once I get everything all milled through, I take the skins and so on from the apples and then cook them again, and the juice from that then becomes apple jelly.
Oh.
And you can do the same thing with peaches or any of your fruit, that the skins and so on there's still flavor in them, so why not continue to use the flavor, and then when you get past that stage, then you can toss them away into the compost pile. But this if you're going to be a serious canner and making lots of applesauce or any kinds of sauces, tomato sauce, any of the fruit sauces, the food mill is a great lifesaver. And you can do this and whip through things really fast. Whereas the colander's great if you don't want to spend a lot of money.
If as one who's done it in the colander, it takes some time
Sure
and
does.
patience.
And plus, you've got to scrape it off with the rubber scraper all the time,
Right.
too. So those are some of the things that you can use as gadgets, so to speak, when we do our canning. And so what we're going to do next is get ready to do some peaches. And so, Stephanie, would you go get me the blancher? And we'll begin to prepare our peaches. And while Stephanie's doing that, I will share with you some information that is key to all canning. And even though I've been canning for many, many years and do all my garden up into cans or in the freezer, I deliberately do not try to learn the timing of how long to put things through because I don't want to make a mistake. And so we have, thank you, Stephanie. We have bulletins at the Extension office that will tell you how to use the hot water bath canner, as well as how to freeze, how to can the fruits and vegetables. And then if you want to go to the bookstore, you can get either the Kerr or the Blue Book. They're both equally good references that not only give you the timing and how to do it, but also how much you need if you want to make, if you know you're going to need 15 quarts of peaches for the year, then you'll know how much to buy or how much to pick. And then they also have recipes for the jams and jellies and salsas and all that kind of thing, which is always a lot of fun.
Stuff.
Exactly. And we're going to share those in a little while, but we're going to keep it simple to start with. And so what we've done now is this is a blanching pot, and this is a canning project pot that I use because I do a lot of canning. But basically what it is, it's simply a pot with a strainer in it. So if you've got something at home already that that's heat resistant, like the colander that I showed you earlier, you could put that colander down into hot water. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the peaches down in there to skin them. And as I said to the camera crew before we started, the middle or the end of March is not a good time to get peaches for skinning because they're not in season. And that's one of the things we need to think about when we're doing canning is think about, don't buy things that are not in season.
Right.
Because you're not going to save any money that way.
Right. And you're going to lose a lot of flavor.
Exactly. And so you need to think about it. You know, people will say to me, well, I want to go out and buy peaches and then can them during the good season, during the natural season. And I say you need to stop and think about it. Not only the cost of the peaches, but the cost of the electricity or gas that you're using, whether you need to go out and buy jars, whether you've got to think about the whole picture, and then compare it to the cost of what you would buy in the store. And if you have no allergies or anything like that, it's easy, make an easy comparison. I started doing a lot of this canning because I had a daughter that had allergies, and so I could not